Varathi Dominion had not lost a war in 11,000 years.
Let the final conquest begin.
164 campaigns.
Wait, what is that?
164 surrenders, extinctions, or absorptions. Entire star clusters bent the knee to the crimson banner of the Dominion, and not once, not a single time in recorded history, had a Varathi war fleet retreated from a battlefield. Their commanders did not know the taste of defeat, their soldiers did not know the word for it in their own language, because the word had been deliberately erased from Varathi vocabulary 3,000 years ago. Following the cleansing of Kethran, victory was not a possibility for the Varathi. Victory was a certainty, as fixed and immovable as the laws of physics. So, when Varathi scout drones detected a small, backward, blue-green world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, a world called Earth by its inhabitants, the Dominion's High Council did not deliberate for long. Pre-industrial weapons technology, reported Fleet Marshal Draxus Kellorn, studying the scout data on the Obsidian wartable aboard the flagship Ashkar's Wrath. Chemical propulsion. No artificial gravity manipulation, no shield technology of any kind. Their most advanced military vessels are constructed of refined iron and burn fossilized carbon for fuel. Councillor Vesa Thren, eldest of the High Council, allowed herself something close to amusement, and they call themselves a spacefaring civilization. They call themselves nothing of the sort, Councillor. They have not yet left their own star system. We detected primitive radio transmissions. Entertainment broadcasts mostly. Music, theater, something they call sports. How charming, Vesa said. Send the 9th Armada, full conquest protocol. I want this world catalogued and pacified within one lunar cycle. Kellorn hesitated, though only for a moment. Councillor, given the technological disparity, might I suggest a smaller force? The 9th Armada represents. I know what it represents, Marshal. Send it anyway. Let the galaxy see how swiftly Earth falls. Let it be a lesson to any species still harboring delusions of resistance. And so the 9th Armada, 400 warships, 12 million soldiers, and enough firepower to crack a planet's crust like an eggshell, turned its bow toward the third planet of an unremarkable system, utterly certain of what would happen next. They were not entirely wrong. Something did happen next, it simply was not what they expected. 3 months earlier, in a research facility buried 2 kilometers beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Amara Osei had been arguing with a room full of skeptical generals for the 4th consecutive hour. I'm telling you, she said, gesturing at the wall of data behind her. The signal wasn't random, it was structured. Whoever, or whatever, sent those scout drones through our outer system was mapping us. Not just our planet, our defenses, our response times, everything. General Marcus Webb crossed his arms. Doctor, with respect, we've had exactly one confirmed contact event, and it lasted less than 4 minutes before the object. Drone, whatever it was, simply vanished from our sensors. You're asking us to reallocate global defense funding, based on 4 minutes of ambiguous data. I'm asking you to trust the mathematics, Amara said. The drone's flight pattern wasn't reconnaissance in the way we understand it. It was reconnaissance in the way a butcher inspects livestock. It wasn't looking for our strengths. It was looking for the fastest, cleanest way to end us. A younger officer near the back of the room, Colonel Priya Anand, finally spoke. Say we believe you, say something's coming, and it's coming because it thinks we're helpless. What exactly do you propose we do about a threat that can cross interstellar space when our best rocket can barely reach Mars? Amara smiled, and it was not a comforting smile. It was the smile of someone who had spent 11 years waiting for someone to finally ask that question. We don't fight fair, she said. We've never had to. Humanity has been fighting stronger, faster, better armed opponents since the day we climbed down out of the trees. We didn't outrun the predators. We didn't outmuscle them. We outthought them, every single time. She pulled up a new set of schematics. Not weapons, not warships, but something stranger. Something that looked, to the assembled officers, almost like nothing at all. They're coming to conquer a planet, Amara said. So let's not give them a planet to conquer. The 9th Armada dropped out of superluminal transit at the edge of Earth's solar system, with the calm, unhurried confidence of a species that had never once needed to hurry. Fleet Marshal Kellorn stood on the command deck of the Ashkar's Wrath, watching the blue-green world grow larger on the viewscreen. Beside him, his tactical officer, a lean and calculating Vorathi named Sarek Doss, ran the standard pre-invasion diagnostics. Orbital defense platforms? Kellerns asked. None, detected Marshal. Planetary shielding? None, detected. Fleet-scale weapons capable of striking us at this range? Sarek paused, checking the readouts twice. None, detected Marshal. Their most advanced satellites appear to be communications and weather monitoring systems, unarmed. Kellorn allowed himself a rare moment of something like pity. Then this will be brief. Deploy the Vanguard. I want ground forces on the surface within 6 hours, and I want their capital cities identified and marked for immediate subjugation broadcasts. No need for excessive force. Let them see the futility of resistance, and they will surrender as the others always have. As you command, Marshal. The Vanguard, 40 warships, sleek and black and utterly silent in the void, broke formation from the main fleet and began their descent toward low orbit. They never reached it. What happened next would be studied, argued over, and mythologized for generations, but the raw facts, pieced together from the Ashkar's Wrath's recovered sensor logs, were these. At an altitude of 800 kilometers, the 40 Vanguard vessels lost contact with something the Vorathi had never encountered before. Nothing, not weapons fire, not energy discharge, not even a detectable signal. Their instruments simply stopped receiving data from an entire region of space, as though a section of the universe itself had been quietly switched off. Then the Ashkar's Wrath lost contact with all 40 ships simultaneously. Report, Kellorn snapped, no longer calm. Sarek's voice cracked, an unheard-of thing for a Vorathi officer. I don't understand. There's no wreckage, no debris field, no distress signals, no weapons discharge in our records. They didn't explode, Marshal, they simply stopped being there. Humanity's answer to the Ninth Armada had not been a fleet, or a weapon, or even a defense. It had been 11 years of quiet, patient, desperate work, by physicists who understood something the Vorathi, in 11,000 years of unbroken conquest, had never needed to learn, that the vacuum of space was not empty, and that the fabric holding it together could be manipulated by those clever enough, and frightened enough, to try. Amara Osei's team had not built a superweapon, they had built 40 precisely calibrated gravitational lensing arrays, hidden in decommissioned satellites, and disguised as space debris, each one capable of folding a small, contained pocket of local spacetime into a closed loop, a bubble with no exit, expanding infinitely inward. Any object caught inside simply ceased to have a location in the observable universe. Not destroyed, not vaporized, erased from causality itself, folded into a fold with no seam, no echo, no trace. It could not stop a planet cracker beam. It could not stop a bombardment. But against 40 ships arriving in tight, disciplined formation, utterly unprepared for anything but conventional resistance, it worked with terrible, silent perfection. Kellorn ordered the main fleet to hold position and deployed reconnaissance drones instead of a second Vanguard. A decision that would later be called either his greatest tactical wisdom, or his final, fatal hesitation, depending on who told the story. The drones found nothing threatening on the surface. No orbital cannons, no visible fleet. Only Earth's ordinary blue skies and ordinary cities, utterly unaware, from all outward appearances, that anything unusual was happening in orbit at all. This, more than the disappearance of the Vanguard, unsettled Kellorn deeply. An enemy who hid their strength was expected. An enemy who appeared to have no strength to hide was something else entirely. Counselor Vesa will demand answers. Sarek said quietly. Counselor Vesa is 11 light-years away and has never commanded a single engagement in her life, Kellorn replied, more sharply than he intended. Recall all forward elements. We regroup, reassess and strike as one unified force. No more piecemeal advances. It was, by Vorathi standards, an almost unthinkably cautious decision. It was also, unbeknownst to Kellorn, exactly what Amara Osei's team had hoped he would do. They're consolidating, reported Colonel Anand, watching the fleet's sensor signature draw together into a single dense formation 1,100 kilometers above the planet. All 400 ships, tight cluster, powering up what looks like a coordinated weapons charge. Let them, Amara said. That's exactly where we want them. The remaining 39 gravitational arrays, the 40th having been used to erase the Vanguard. had been designed for one purpose only. Small, precise, contained erasure of individual targets. They were never meant to be aimed at 400 ships packed into a formation, less than 200 kilometers across. But Amara's team hadn't needed 13 separate erasures, they needed one very large one, overlapping 39 gravitational lensing fields at the correct harmonic frequency, did not simply stack their effects. It multiplied them, creating a single unstable fold nearly 400 kilometers in diameter, expanding at a rate the team's models had only ever tested in simulation. It was, in the truest sense, an experimental weapon, untested, unproven, and terrifyingly unpredictable. If it failed to activate cleanly, it could tear open a wound in spacetime that never closed. "Doctor," General Webb said, watching the activation countdown with a face gone pale, if this doesn't work, General, it won't matter what happens next," Amara said. "So let's make sure it works." Aboard the Ashkar's Wrath, Fleet Marshal Kellorn felt it before his instruments registered it. A wrongness in the ship's structure, a faint and terrible hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Marshal, gravitational anomaly forming around the entire fleet, expanding, emergency retreat, full reverse thrust, now." There was no time. There was, in the end, barely a fraction of a second between Kellorn's order and the moment the fold closed, then there was nothing at all. No explosion. No light, no sound. The 400 ships of the Ninth Armada, the single largest military force the Vorathi Dominion had ever assembled, simply were not there anymore. Not destroyed, not scattered, but subtracted, cleanly and completely. From the universe that had once contained them, Counselor Vesa Thren received the final transmission from the Ashkar's Wrath 11 days later, delayed by the vast gulf of interstellar distance. A garbled, panicked burst of data that ended mid-sentence, followed by 11 years of silence from a fleet that should have conquered a helpless, primitive world within a single lunar cycle. Vorathi scout drones sent to investigate found exactly what the fleet's own instruments had recorded: nothing, no wreckage, no debris field, no distress beacons drifting in the dark. Earth's skies were calm, its cities unchanged, its people apparently unaware that a fleet of 400 warships had ever entered their solar system at all. The Dominion's High Council debated for 3 years before deciding, unanimously and without further discussion, that Earth would not be approached again. They never learned the truth. That, the helpless, primitive world they had so casually condemned, had spent 11,000 years of Vorathi conquests, quietly, patient, learning to survive by outsmarting everything that had ever tried to outmatch it. They never learned that Amara Osi's team had spent every sleepless night since first contact, refining a technology so far beyond conventional weaponry that the Vorathi, for all their victories, had no framework to even recognize it as a weapon at all. On Earth, the arrays were quietly deactivated, their locations classified, their existence known to fewer than 200 people. Across the entire planet, Amara Ose stood alone that night on the observation deck above the Nevada facility, looking up at a sky that, for the first time in 3 months, felt entirely her own again. 164 victories. She murmured to herself, remembering the intercepted Vorathi communications her team had painstakingly decoded in the war's final week. And they never once asked what happens on the 165th. Above her, the stars burned on, indifferent and silent, keeping Earth's secret, exactly as well as Earth had kept it from them.